Hey everyone, so in that first video I showed you how to do a pretty straightforward case of the initial data extraction when there's only one TBI group and one control group. I want to walk you through a more complicated scenario of what it would look like if you have multiple subgroups of the TBI group. So in this example, so again I opened up the meta-analysis workflow. I needed to see which articles need to be extracted. In this case, I'm going to look at 15, 20, 12, just for illustrative purposes. But if this was you doing this on your own, you would look to the next one and say, okay, we need to do the extraction for 18, 20, 16. You'd open that article and you'd start this process. So 15, 20, 12, I'm going to scroll down until I find a table. All right, here we go. So this is an independence group post-test only. So just like we saw in part 1, that means that there was one control group and one concussion group. We don't have them being followed over, we have them being followed over time after their concussion, but we don't have a true baseline data of what they look like before they were actually concussed. So in this case, we have 3 different groups of concussions, of folks with concussions. We have those who are kiddos 9 to 12 years old, 13 to 16 years old, and we have adults. Now each group has a control group. So there's some folks who are 9 to 12 with a concussion, and then they're being compared specifically to their own control group. Then we have 13 to 16-year-olds. These folks who are concussed are compared to their own control group. And finally, the adults who are concussed are being compared to their own control group because they're age matched. So what would that look like when we have our sheet? So let me pull that over here. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to set up our coding sheet so that we are reflecting all 3 different groups. They're still all going to be in the same column, but now this time we're gonna they're all going to be together. So you're going to see a lot of repetition. So for example, everybody was assessed the single digit modalities, the HVLT, BVMT, PSU, color trails, so on and so forth. So we see SDMT, or single digit, HVLT, BVMT, and so on and so forth for the 9 to 12-year-olds. We see the exact same test for the 13 to 16-year-olds, and then we see the exact same test for the adults. But again, they're each compared to their own control group. So what we'll do is we'll go through and extract the data exactly as we did before, but this time we're just going to be doing it 3 times. So in this case, for the single digit modalities, the control group is 39.1 with a 10.9 standard deviation. Sample size is actually not included in this table. I had to go out and find it. If the sample size is either not written in the notes here or is not included in the table, just leave it blank. Sorry about that, I forgot about that. Sample size 16. Over here we have 40.5 plus or minus 7.5. So in this case, we're going to do the exact same thing, every single one of them. It's going to take a little bit longer. What I also would want you to do is I would want you in the front in the test name, before you actually type out the test name, is write out the actual subgroup that the test is being derived from. So in this case, we have 912 colon CAWA total, 1316 colon CAWA total, adult colon CAWA total, so on and so forth. So anytime there's multiple subgroups, make sure that you're indicating which subgroup that test name is coming from. That's going to be really important for us later. So that's what you would do if you have multiple subgroups, with each one of them having their own control group. Now, on the other hand, you might have an example in which case there is multiple subgroups, multiple concussed groups, but only a single control group. So I'm going to open this article, scroll down, and I'm going to find the specific table that's highlighted for me. So in this case, I'm going to take a look at the table just to familiarize myself with it so I know what's going on. So we have a group of folks who suffered a TBI that had a loss of consciousness, and then we had a group of folks who had a TBI with no loss of consciousness. And then we also have a group of orthopedic injuries. So this is our orthopedic controls. These are folks who go to the hospital because they break a leg, break an arm or something like that. So they're going to do all the same exact tests. So we're controlling for the pain, any potential trauma, discomfort, medicine, so on and so forth. So this is going to look a little bit different when we fill out our sheet. In this case, just like we did before, we want to highlight the differences between the two different groups. So we're going to say LOC, so loss of consciousness, and then all the different test names. Then we're going to do no loss of consciousness and all the different test names. And we'll put that information in there. So for example, WAIS FSIQ for the folks with the loss of consciousness. WAIS FSIQ, their mean is 100.9. Standard deviation is 14.16. Sample size is 74. The orthopedic injury control group is 98.90, mean with 15.01 standard deviation. So 98.9, 15.1 standard deviation. Now you'll do that for all the folks who had a loss of consciousness. Now you're going to do the same thing for the no loss of consciousness. You're going to come through, no loss of consciousness. MTBI or FSIQ is 99.38, 99.38. Standard deviation is 13.66. Standard deviation 13.66. The difference between this type of study, where there's one control group with multiple subgroups, versus the one we just saw before, is that the control group is exactly the same. There's only one control group as opposed to multiple control groups for each individual subgroup, like we saw before. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that you're going to copy and paste and use the exact same information for the control group for both subgroups. So for example here, this information is exactly the same as the information down here, because they're both being compared to the same control group. So for example, the loss of consciousness group with an FSIQ, with the WAIS FSIQ is 98.9. The no loss of control group, WAIS FSIQ, again, this is the control group, 98.9, 15.1, 99. So all you have to do is input this information and then copy and paste and make it exactly the same. So it's going to save you a little bit of time, but again, it's just requiring that extra cognitive energy to make sure that you are inputting the right information. Also, one thing I did forget to do is I forgot to highlight, I forgot to highlight all of this because we want to extract this data as well. But that's neither here nor there. Again, once I am done, save this really quick. Sorry for that interruption. Once I am done extracting this data, I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to save it as the code of the study, -initial extraction, -my initials. You're going to do pretty much the exact same process here as you see in the independent post groups only as you would do for the other study design. So this is a pre-post. You'll see this a lot more with athletes, where they come in pre-season, they do their testing, and then they get a concussion, and that's going to be time point 1. So you would put their, you have again a control group and a concussed group. You would do their pre-injury or pre-baseline testing in here, and then their post-concussion. So after they sustain a concussion, what is their scores here? And then what is the control group after that same point, at that same time point down here? I will find I will make another video specific for these control group, or excuse me, this study design. I apologize, it's pretty late, so don't have all my wits about me. I will create another video to show you how to do this specific design, but this is a lot less common, so I want to focus more on the independence group post-test only, also known as a cross-sectional design or a cohort study. Again, don't worry about this as much. This is more for the purposes of myself or some of the other grad students who are working on this. If you have any questions about this or are not sure, please post something in the team page. It's much more important, it's really important that we get out in front of this and do this correctly, especially with the first couple, to make sure that everything goes down the road smoothly. Thanks so much. Hopefully this is informative. Hopefully this made sense. Like I said, I feel like I've been babbling, so let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for your help.